Thanks to our friends on the 5 and welcome to Hannity, and this is a Fox News alert. Tonight, former FBI Director James Comey releases his opening remarks ahead of tomorrow's congressional testimony. It raises serious legal concerns for himself and not the president. Plus, the president's lawyer says the commander-in-chief, he feels vindicated tonight by Comey's prepared testimony, and he is now ready to move forward. We will have full legal analysis and reaction to Comey's prepared statement, and also the left, the mainstream media, they are outright lying to you about this at a level never before seen in our country's history. Their goal is to destroy the president now by any means necessary. They are nothing more than agenda-driven ideologues. They stage protests. They call the president a piece of you-know-what. They even have people posing like ISIS fighters with a severed head of the commander-in-chief. They attack the First Lady, the president's children, even his 11-year-old son. Now, this is all designed to stop what you, the American people, voted for in November by any means necessary. So tonight, it's time to stand up and fight for the soul and future of this country. And tonight, that starts by being honest and giving you coverage you won't find anywhere else about the former FBI Director, James Comey, and his agenda-driven mission. Now, did James Comey himself commit a felony and break the law by not coming forward with his claims? That is tonight's all-important opening monologue. All right, so earlier today, the former FBI Director James Comey released his opening statement that he will give tomorrow before the Senate Intelligence Committee. This statement contains several key points that blow the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy theory completely out of the water, and it completely shoots down the media and the Democrats and all the hyperventilating and foaming at the mouth about obstruction of justice. And now we've discovered, by the way, that they have been lying to you for months. Now we're going to cover everything in terms of this self-serving document released by Comey. It almost reads like a novel in great detail tonight. But here are some very key points that I want to tell you about. Number one, the president did not obstruct justice. Comey never says his interactions with the president were inappropriate or illegal. And by the way, that this is key, that they constituted in any way an obstruction of justice or violation of the law. Number two, Comey told President Trump that he was not personally under investigation. The president wasn't. Number three, Comey admits that there was confusion between him and the president over a so-called loyalty pledge. Number four, if Comey thought it was obstruction of justice and he didn't come forward, did Comey commit a felony and violate the law? Number five, unlike his conversations with President Trump, Comey writes that he never created memos about interactions with President Obama. Now, remember, he also didn't put Hillary Clinton under oath during her FBI interview, and Comey didn't bother to have the Bureau create a full transcript of that interview. So let's start with the first point. The president did not obstruct justice. Now, Comey described the February 14th meeting in the Oval Office as follows, quote, the president then returned to the topic of Mike Flynn, saying, he's a good guy, he's been through a lot, and he repeated that Flynn hadn't done anything wrong on his calls with the Russians, but the fact that he had misled the vice president. He then said, I hope, remember, I hope, keywords here, you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go. And I replied only, he's a good guy. Now, first of all, any lawyer, legal expert will tell you that this alleged conversation doesn't come anywhere close to obstruction of justice like the media is claiming tonight. And then there's this from Comey. I had understood the president to be requesting that we drop any investigation of Flynn in connection with false statements about his conversations with the Russian ambassador in December. I did not understand the president to be talking about the broader investigation into Russia or possible links to his campaign. I could be wrong, but I took him to be focusing on what had just happened with Flynn's departure and the controversy around his account of his phone calls. Regardless, it was concerning given the FBI's role as an independent investigative agency. So, according to Comey, in his opening statement tomorrow, President Trump only mentioned Flynn and didn't try to bring up the topic or try to impede the overall, quote, Russia investigation. And here's another major point that the media won't tell you. There were only two people in the room. This is only James Comey's version of events, and now he perceived Trump's comments. Now, the president may have a much different interpretation in spite of all the insane, breathless coverage you might have watched earlier today. Again, there's no legal basis for obstruction, and that means the Destroy Trump media, which has been hyperventilating, foaming at the mouth about this, they've been completely wrong. Watch this coverage.
When you say there is an obstruction case here, who's your target?
The target would be the President of the United States and anybody else that was involved in that decision to fire Jim Comey.
As an attorney, as a U.S. Senator, do you consider this to be a growing body of evidence that the president might have attempted to obstruct justice?
Does what we've heard and seen so far constitute obstruction of justice? And if not, how might you go about proving it?
Well, I think it's getting pretty close.
Your reaction to this bombshell report and the White House denial?
3 words: obstruction of justice.
All right, now here's the most important point that the media will never tell you. If James Comey did in fact think this was obstruction of justice and he didn't come forward, Comey could have committed a felony and he himself broken the law. Now, we're putting up the law, the actual law, on the side of your screen, and as my colleague Greg Jarrett has pointed out, and he will be here in a minute to explain more, if James Comey thought the president was doing something illegal, he had a legal obligation to come forward immediately. That's not what Comey did. In his testimony, Comey says he didn't bother to tell the Attorney General Jeff Sessions about his conversation with President Trump because, in part, well, he thought Sessions was going to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. That would not be a reason not to follow the law. And then when Comey complained to the Attorney General, Sessions, face-to-face, about not wanting to be left alone with the president, he once again decided not to tell Sessions about his conversation with the president. Another key major point, Comey also told President Trump he was not personally under investigation, not once, multiple times. Now, this means, once again, every conspiracy theory you have heard for month after month after month about President Trump colluding with the Russians, the president colluding with the Russians, is not true. And given the mainstream media's nonstop, incessant coverage and the fact that Comey told Trump he's not under investigation, it is unreasonable for the president to say, hey, you know, it's not unreasonable to say, hey, everyone's claiming that, in fact, you know, I might be involved here, and you're telling me I'm not under investigation. Can you just come forward and set the record straight and tell the American people the truth and clear my name because it's interfering with my job? Now, do you think that's unreasonable? Shouldn't the FBI director come forward and tell the truth that he believes to the American people? But that's not all. Comey admits there was confusion between him and the president over a so-called loyalty pledge, which happened at a private dinner. Now, take a look at this from Comey's prepared testimony. He then said, I need loyalty. I replied, you will always get honesty from me. He paused and then said, well, that's what I want, honest loyalty. I paused and said, well, you will get that from me. As I wrote in the memo that I created immediately after the dinner, that it was possible that we understood or misunderstood the phrase honest loyalty. Now, differently, but I decided it wouldn't be productive to push it further. So, was it loyalty? Was it honest loyalty? By the way, what does this mean anyway? It could have been a ton of different things. Is it loyalty to the Constitution and the rule of law, not loyalty to the deep state? Comey, or not loyalty to the former administration that Comey worked for? Comey even admits that there was confusion about that part of the conversation, and there's also a glaring double standard here. Unlike with President Trump, James Comey, he didn't write memos about his conversations with President Obama. I said this weeks ago. I think that's because Comey is planning on writing a novel or a tell-all book and probably be working for MSNBC and probably following Rachel Maddow every night. And he's a perfect black helicopter conspiracy theorist, it seems himself. And there's also the fact that James Comey did not require, think of this, Hillary Clinton was not put under oath when she was interviewed about her server, or that a complete transcript of that interview was said to be created. Why not? Why wasn't that done? For example, look at what happened to Michael Flynn. Now, the guy was tarred and feathered by the press when Trump allegedly said, well, I can hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. You know, he's a good guy. I hope you can do this. I hope you can let this go. Was it similar to what the president said on 60 Minutes about the Clintons, that he, quote, didn't want to hurt them? that, you know, he was basically saying he wanted to let them go. Now, Comey apparently didn't want to hurt the Clintons either, because remember back during the campaign, he felt it was necessary to come out and announce the FBI's findings about Hillary Clinton. And Comey laid out that Clinton had secret, top secret, special access program, classified information on her unsecure server that we believe, 99% certainty, was hacked by 5 foreign intelligence agencies. But then after all that, well, he treated Clinton with kid gloves. You may remember this in July of last year.
In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. We are expressing to justice our view that no charges are appropriate in this case.
Nah, that's not mishandling of classified material by putting it on a mom-and-pop bathroom closet, the server with the top secret information on it. No, that's not. Or getting rid of emails, some 30,000+, even top secret emails. By the way, Clinton broke several laws, committed several felonies, but she gets the courtesy of the public announcement. But the president, who the FBI director told a number of times did nothing wrong, wasn't under investigation, did not get the same treatment. That's ridiculous, and Comey, by the way, should be ashamed of himself. This reads like a political document in every way, shape, matter, or form. Now, by the way, there's more to say in terms of the big story that we're following earlier today. Now, the media won't cover this tonight. Earlier, during a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing earlier today, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, and the NSA Director, Admiral Mike Rogers, they threw cold water on the narrative that President Trump acted inappropriately during their conversations with him. Oh, they're saying something different. Let's start with Rogers. While he would not comment on his private conversations with the president, he made his point crystal clear. Take a look.
In the 3+ years that I have been the director of the National Security Agency, to the best of my recollection, I have never been directed to do anything I believe to be illegal, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate. And to the best of my recollection, during that same period of service, I do not recall ever feeling pressured to do so.
Why would CNN or NBC ever pay attention to that? And that's not all. Listen to the Director of National Intelligence, Director Coats, and what he said.
When I was asked yesterday to respond to a piece that I was told was going to be written and printed in the Washington Post this morning, my response to that was, in my time of service, which is in interacting with the President of the United States, or anybody in his administration, I have never been pressured. I have never felt pressure to intervene or interfere in any way and shaping intelligence in a political way or in relationship to an ongoing investigation.
And by the way, McNabe and Andrew McNabe, the interim FBI director, he said basically the same thing, as did others today. All these sound bites help exonerate President Trump. They're not going to be played over and over again in the mainstream media because it doesn't fit their ideology, their liberal narrative. They are lying to you, the American people, just like they are with James Comey. They're not going to tell you he has an axe to grind. Now, keep this in mind tomorrow while you listen to his testimony. Joining us now with reaction is the American Center for Law and Justice Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow, from CircaNews.com, Sarah Carter, and Fox News anchor and attorney Greg Jarrett. All right, Jay, let's start with you. What am I missing? Where am I right? Where am I wrong in my analysis here?
Well, let me tell you what you've got here. A total and complete vindication of the President of the United States on any of these allegations of obstruction of anything, and the fact that also the President was clearly not under investigation, not a target. So all of the left's talking points are completely incorrect by James Comey's own testimony, in his written testimony. This now is bad for the country to continue spending resources, distracting everyone, including the Congress, from really getting to the people's business. This is a waste of money. But I'm going to tell you what this is. This document right here, case closed. There is no case. And by the way, couple that, Sean, with all of the statements from Sally Yates, from all of the other, besides all the intelligence individuals, the heads of intelligence agencies, James Clapper, all of them saying no evidence.
Clapper,
Mark Warner,
Comey,
no evidence.
Brennan,
no
Warner,
evidence of collusion.
Feinstein, Maxine Waters, all of them.
Right.
No
so
evidence of collusion.
What you've got is case should be closed, complete vindication, total vindication. But let me add one other thing here, Sean. President Obama, people are going to forget this, but I want to remember because I handled this case in court. In the middle of a criminal investigation into the IRS targeting of conservative organizations, in the middle of that investigation, the President of the United States said there was not even a smidgen of corruption while the investigation was open and pending. Did James Comey write a memo about that? No. Suffers from selective disclosure disorder. I've been saying that for weeks. That's what it is.
And just like with Hillary in the email server,
Yes.
Sarah, let's bring you in.
Yeah, hey, you know, I was just thinking Jay's right on the money about a lot of this because the obstruction argument is completely illogical here. You know, if you think about it, former Director Comey of the FBI had told President Trump 3 times that he was not under direct investigation. So he didn't fire Director Comey because he suspected he was under investigation. He fired Director Comey for the way he was handling the FBI. And we just take a step back and look at all of that. I mean, even with the stories about Russia and collusion, this is all hearsay. There's no facts to support it. We've been reporting this for quite a long time, that there is no evidence of collusion between President Trump and the Russians, and yet it perpetuates itself in the media. So I think that this was, in a way, a vindication of President Trump, and it certainly laid to bed any argument that President Trump is being looked at.
And the most important point is a point that, Greg, you've been making, that if Comey did claim obstruction of justice, like everybody in the media has been saying, oh, this is obstruction, that would have meant he committed 2 felonies. You were the first that I saw reported this.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting tomorrow when he testifies, Sean, because he'll be asked, did you think this was obstruction of justice? He's going to dodge.
He has to say no.
He either has to say no or he's going to dodge it. Good luck with that. Because the crime is called misprision of felony. If a federal government official knows of a felony like obstruction, he must, under the law, report it to his superiors at the Department of Justice in the case of Comey. Failure to do so is a crime punishable by 3 years behind bars. So Comey has to
pick it up there.
Yep.
Stay right there. We're going to come back to whether or not Comey could have committed a felony. Well, more with Sarah, Jay, and Greg right after the break. And later, Austin Goolsbee. All right, he weighs in on James Comey's prepared testimony and much more tonight. And welcome back to Hannity's. We continue now with Jay Sekulow, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett. All right, I want to go back to 18 U.S. Code 4, Greg, the point that you made. If Comey thought that there was any attempt to obstruct justice, it doesn't matter if he thinks that the Attorney General is going to recuse himself or the Deputy Attorney General is only interim. He had to report immediately or he committed a felony, right?
Yeah, it's called misprision of felony. I had to laugh at the statement here by Comey in which he offers up the vacuous excuses to why he didn't do it because, oh, gee, I thought Sessions might recuse himself. And, you know, the Assistant Attorney General probably wasn't going to be in that position for a while. Under the law, that doesn't matter. So tomorrow, Comey has to say, oh, yeah, the conversation was concerning to me, but he cannot say it was obstruction of justice. If he does, the next words to Comey will be, sir, you have the right to remain silent.
Wow. Jay Sekulow, I agree with Greg's analysis. I think the law is clear. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it is. Look, James Comey's legal standards are, you know, he gets mildly nauseous when someone says you intervened in a political campaign. He's mildly nauseous. And in his memo, his new legal standard is, I was uncomfortable when I was with the president. Really, that's now the legal standard. But I'll tell you why he's not, why he did not follow through with reporting obstruction of justice. Because there was no obstruction of justice. And he would have to be under oath saying that he thought there was a case for obstruction of justice and bring a charge under 18 U.S.C. 4 against James Comey. So what did he do? His lawyer said, you know what, you better not testify on a false statement of your own. Because now James Comey, by the way, is the former FBI director. He is a witness. He's under oath. He's obligated to tell the truth. He didn't walk across the street because there was no case, and he said that in his memo.
And it is funny because if you go to, I hope that poor Michael Flynn doesn't get attacked anymore.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
And you go to that, which he kind of said, Sarah, about Hillary, but I didn't hear any conversation about the one law we know that was broken in all of this, which was the unmasking and the violation, the felony violating the Espionage Act by releasing raw intelligence on Michael Flynn. He was a victim of a felony.
Absolutely, he was a victim of a felony. And, you know, earlier today, in earlier testimony, when Rogers was questioned, as well as Coates was questioned, I mean, this was a big deal. And Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, said, you know, we will prosecute to the full extent of the law. If we find out people violated Section 702 of the FISA, we will prosecute this to the full extent of the law. And we know people have, because we know that name leaked. And there were very few people, remember that, Sean, very few people who had possession of the name Mike Flynn at that point in time when it was leaked.
Last point. Rod Rosenstein, Dan Coates, Mike Rogers, Admiral Rogers, Andrew McCabe, all said no one from the White House is asked to influence an investigation. They even went on, Greg, and said things as interesting as they were never asked to do anything illegal, as Admiral Rogers says, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate. All of that was said today, you know. And none of it's getting any media play.
And, well, I don't know if the media is either ignorant or malevolent, but the way they've been portraying obstruction of the president is really a shame to the American public that watches them or reads them. Look, the law is very simple. It either has to be lying or threats or bribery or destroying evidence or altering documents. That would be obstruction of justice. None of that happened here. The president never threatened Comey with his job by saying, clear Flynn or you're fired. If that had happened,
he just said, I hope so.
Right.
I hope
maybe.
so.
Like human compassion
is not a crime.
Yeah, human compassion. So there's
like
not a
with
crime
Hillary.
there's not a crime of human compassion. So what you've got right now is this ongoing investigation is bad for the country, a waste of the taxpayers' money, and we need to get back to the business. And the president's committed to doing this. He is going to fight terrorism. He's going to get this health care bill through. We're going to get tax reform. But this right now is a sideshow for no reason.
All right.
You know what it should be? Case closed.
I got to tell you, you all have been amazing, and I will tell you, it is pathetic how ideologically, how viciously inaccurate the media is to the American people. It is propaganda and misinformation on steroids, human growth hormone. We've never seen it before, and it's a big problem. I want to thank you all. Hopefully we'll have you all back tomorrow night. And coming up, Austin Goolsbee, he'll weigh in on James Comey's prepared testimony. Did he show bias towards the Trump administration, a double standard versus Hillary, and a double standard as it relates to other issues? Also, Piers Morgan absolutely destroys the London mayor as to why he's not protecting the people of London. We'll get into that. We'll play you the tape and much more straight ahead.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Jackie Ibanez in New York. A defiant North Korea is at it again, this time launching several short-range surface-to-ship cruise missiles. It's just the latest in a series of missile tests despite international pressure to stop. The missiles traveled about 124 miles. Just last week, the UN Security Council passed a resolution expanding sanctions against North Korea for missile testing. North Korea claims the missiles are needed to counter U.S. aggression. 12 people are dead and dozens injured after a pair of terror attacks in Iran. Gunmen and suicide bombers attacked Iran's parliament and the tomb of its revolutionary leader. ISIS is claiming responsibility for that, but Iran blames the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. President Trump is among several world leaders condemning the attacks tonight, but the president also accusing Iran of sponsoring terrorism. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity. For all of your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
Welcome back to Hannity. So, did James Comey show a blatant bias towards the Trump administration? After all, Comey did admit that he didn't take notes on his conversations with President Obama. Plus, the FBI, well, didn't put Hillary Clinton under oath. Joining us with reaction, former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee, and still with us from circanews.com, Sarah Carter. All right, to my good friend Austin, glad to have you. Here's a question. Do you agree that Hillary Clinton putting top-secret information and special access program information on a server in a mom-and-pop shop bathroom in a closet that we have a 99.9% certainty ended up in the hands of 5 foreign intelligence agencies, would you say by definition that's mishandling of classified material?
That's not a characterization of what happened that the intelligence community agrees with. If that were what had happened, then yes, I would say that was a mishand.
Sarah, is that what happened? Because apparently Austin doesn't read the newspapers.
I completely disagree with you, Austin, on this. Look, there was a lot of concern among U.S. federal law enforcement personnel, FBI personnel, that were investigating Hillary Clinton's server and multiple servers. And the concern was that there was classified information on there, and she knew that this information was classified, even though she claimed she didn't understand what she was sending or what she was looking at certain points during their interview with her. I can tell you this because I've interviewed numerous people connected to this investigation. And not only that, because McCabe brought it up, the acting deputy director of the FBI brought this up in his testimony and said there were people that were angry. In fact, I was told some FBI agents actually threw sandwiches at the television when Comey made that announcement. People were angry, and I don't think the American public understands that.
But Sarah, so what are you guys saying?
Sarah, wait a minute.
How is that relevant to this?
Austin, you're a smart guy. It is a fact. Even Comey himself admitted that it was in a server in a mom and pop shop, and that is not, if you can't see that's mishandling of classified material, then we can't get to second base. And if we can't get to second base, I can't ask you about the double standard.
I've never said, I said from the beginning, and my impression was that Hillary Clinton herself said that she made a mistake and she should not have handled her email in that way.
Mishandling is actually called a felony where under federal law.
But wait, the President of the United States, according to Comey, explicitly asked the law enforcement, Jeff Sessions, to go out of the room so he could be alone with them, and asked him to shut down an investigation.
Sean, yeah, I mean, look, there's concern here. You're innocent until proven guilty, and if you're running an investigation and you believe that you have evidence against somebody, you don't leak it out. This appeared to be a concerted effort by people within the intelligence community and federal law enforcement who did not like Trump to leak these things out and put him in a public sphere where the administration was then strangled by these news reports day in and day out, and they still are, and they were trying to fight against untruths. But how can you prove it? Because the people who have the classified information could not speak out publicly and correct the record because everybody was talking anonymously.
And by the way, and Comey exonerated Hillary, even stepped on the role of the Attorney General at the time, which is something he shouldn't have done. But he tells Trump privately, well, we're not investigating you. And Trump said, can you tell the public? Can you tell the American people? Because they're believing the black helicopter lies in the media.
Now,
all right,
that
Austin,
part,
because I'm
look,
such a
on both of those counts, on Sarah's count and your count, I agree with that. The leaking of information, that is illegal. It shouldn't exist. And if he's privately
your friend Obama set it up
one thing, and he won't say that publicly, I could see why he'd be upset. But this Comey letter, this is not a leak. This is his sworn testimony before Congress. He's saying the president asked him to shut down an investigation.
This is one man's version of events.
That's a problem. That's all I'm saying.
He said, and go ahead, Sarah.
I don't think he's saying that he asked him to shut down the investigation on Russia. If you read it carefully, he was talking about Mike Flynn.
Russia. It was about Flynn.
Yeah, it was about Mike Flynn. And I think there was a concern there. And, you know, I can't speak for the president. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what Director Comey was thinking at that time. But you can see clearly in Director Comey's testimony that he did tell him on 3 times, you know, that he is not under direct investigation. He also, you know, I think that the president isn't as aware of how things operate here in Washington, D.C. And, you know, he was concerned actually about Flynn. I don't think that it was a nefarious move.
Yeah, but he's not allowed to do that.
I got to add one thing. We got to go. But I will say one thing.
But he can't break it, even if he's ignorant.
He broke no law. There's no.
I don't know that that's true, Sean.
Comey's
statement. Asked the head of the FBI to shut down an investigation, that
excuse me, you're dead wrong. And if he wait a minute, and if he did, then that means Comey, by not reporting it, would have committed 2 felonies because he had a legal obligation to immediately tell the Justice Department. No, you're wrong on the law.
I want this not to be true. Our country is in for a very
Comey is saying it's not true.
If it's true.
All right, and still to come on this busy breaking news night tonight here on Hannity.
Donald Trump, again, being a schmuck, thinking that he can buy people's integrity by inviting them over to the White House and wowing them. I'm sorry, that's how he thinks.
All right, liberal Joe Scarborough, emotionally unhinged, now calling the president of the United States a schmuck. Herman Cain will weigh in. And also tonight, Piers Morgan confronts the mayor of London right to his face over monitoring potential terrorists and how they're letting them free even when they go fight in Syria with ISIS. Brigitte Gabriel, Rick Grenell, weigh in. Welcome back to Hannity. All right, following this weekend's past London terror attacks, Piers Morgan, he confronted the London mayor about alleged terrorists returning to the capital city from the war-torn countries, and things got heated. Look at Piers take him down.
What could be a bigger priority than people coming back from a Syrian battlefield with intent to harm British citizens? Why is it not the #1 priority? Why are these people just allowed to come back in the first place, and then the London mayor doesn't appear to have a clue where any of them are? I mean, no disrespect to you, but where are they?
Well, that's one of the questions that obviously the police and security services are
Yeah, but
looking into.
How do you not know where they are? Donald Trump Jr. also calling out the London mayor over his feud with the president. Watch this.
Maybe, rather than the mayor of London attacking, maybe he should do something about it. Maybe he should do something to fix the problem rather than just sit there and pretend there isn't one.
So you think the mayor of London is at fault for what happened there?
No, that's not what I said. I think it's time for the people there to probably act and do something a lot more proactive than what's going on. And I do think that's something people have to do. We can't just sit there and pretend this is not a problem.
All right, here now with reaction from Act for America, the founder, Brigitte Gabriel, former spokesman for the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Rick Grenell, is with us. Let me play for both of you. This is the mayor of London actually referring to moderate Muslims as Uncle Toms. Really? Watch this.
Is that you can't just pick and choose who you speak to. You can't just speak to Uncle Toms. You can't just speak to people who will say what you want them to hear. But I can assure you, and you can speak to government ministers who will tell you the hard time they've got talking to ordinary British citizens of Muslim faith, British groups of Muslim faith, and I can tell you nearly all of them are a critical friend.
Doesn't that reveal how he really thinks rather than whatever phony apology he gave out later, Brigitte?
Yes, it does. You know, usually they say whatever comes out of the mouth first, that's what's really going on in the mind. And that's it. You know, his true colors are shining. And this latest attack in London basically shined a light on his real character and his true color and how he's doing as a mayor and people's trust in him. I think this is a good wake-up call for the Londoners that voted for him in the first place.
Yeah, and by the way, he tells, oh, this is our new way of life. And, oh, by the way, after the attacks where people are killed and stabbed and injured, oh, London's safe. Just ridiculous. Rick, so you have this Piers Morgan. I mean, it just made him look so stupid. They let people that go to Syria come back to London. They don't know where they are. Those would be the first people I'd look at, along with this documentary, one of the terrorists with the ISIS flag, Allahu Akbar, Sharia's coming to 10 Downing Street. I mean, we'll air it as you answer. Why do we even have intelligence if we're not going to go after the lowest hanging fruit, the people we know that believe this?
Right, exactly the point. We have intelligence officers who gather information, who do all the hard work, and they put people on a watch list. They put people on a watch list so that our public policy leaders and our politicians will watch them. But instead, we have the mayor of London, as you referred to. He literally said, Sean, that it's part and parcel of living in a big city to experience terrorism. And I would argue that it's only part and parcel of living in a big city experiencing terrorism when you have a mayor or a politician or a leader who doesn't watch the watch list. That's his whole job. And I think that the British voter is going to absolutely wake up and say, we cannot have leaders who aren't taking terrorism seriously, who don't believe they can crush it.
Theresa May has not done a great job, but there's no option in the election. You know, when you have somebody that either fights in Syria and comes back and you don't know where they are, or you have somebody that is, you know, chanting Allahu Akbar with the ISIS flag, Brigitte, and you don't get rid of them, you basically, in my mind, if they act on these stated opinions and you know who they are, I say you have